Good morning. My name is Bridget Laflin. I am the ministerial intern over at the Unitarian Universalist Society of Iowa City. I use she, her pronouns, and I am very happy to be here with you today. We begin today with a call to worship written by Gary Kowalski. With faith to face our challenges, with love that casts out fear, we hope to trust tomorrow. We accept this day as the gift it is, a reason for rejoicing. Come, let us worship together. As Tom lights our chalice, let's recite our chalice lighting words. In the light of truth and in the warmth of love, we gather to seek, to sustain, and to inspire. Please rise in body or spirit for our opening song, number 1012 in the Teal hymnal, When I Am Frightened.
Please remain standing. In the spirit of love and fellowship, we now greet the holy in our midst by briefly greeting those around us, especially those we do not know.
story.
We're not having a message for all ages?
Nope. We're going straight to here.
Oh, she's going to sing out the children.
Well, she's going to announce that there isn't
Okay.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. So it looks a little different in here right now because the kids are already downstairs. But we've got 15 kids downstairs. We had 21 kids last week. So we're growing, and it's wonderful to see. So they are downstairs. The big kids are making soup. They're making chicken and rice soup and chili, and all of the proceeds will go to the Make-A-Wish Foundation as part of the class that they're taking this year. So when you go downstairs for coffee hour, be as generous as you can, and we also we have bowls to eat during coffee hour, and we have to-go containers. So we will see you downstairs.
So now is the time to find your way, Susan Perry. Here's where you start. No.
I was still trying to read because there are so many joys and concerns today. Good morning. I am Susan Perry, a member of the Pastoral Care Associates ministry team. As we gather today, we pause to reflect on what lies within our hearts. In this time of sharing, we take a moment to recognize our personal joys and concerns and to read from the book of Joys and Concerns those personal life events you have chosen to share with us. For concerns, Amanda S. states that everyone who will be impacted by Iowa's Civil Rights Act removing gender identity is certainly a sorrow. James Baldwin states, for the fact that Pakistan now has more pro-something laws, re sex and gender than Montana and Iowa. And Marcy Doyle states that please keep my brother Jim in our thoughts and send healing wishes and vibes for his surgery on Tuesday. And Grandmaster George Smith has heart surgery this week. Are there any online concerns? No. Any online joys? Thank you. Ashley Zeikert has a joy that she got a promotion to shift leader at work. And Mindy and Mike Pace state that Becca is recovering from a procedure and doing well. Mindy Pace also mentions a joy for the One Human Family's Rally for Democracy, which was a great night of support and love for all. And it was very nice. And Marcy Doyle mentions that Darcy and Steve, she wants to thank them for their wonderful cure. Care. Sorry. I was trying to figure that out. Care for our family. You can see why I was a little late getting up here. I was trying to read everyone's words, and I was mistaken, obviously. So thank you. Let us become aware of the energy that brings us together in beloved community, and as we share a time of silent meditation, may we open our minds and hearts to a place of quiet, to a silent prayer for the healing of pain and the comfort of love. You are invited to come forward and light a candle during the musical meditation that follows.
you. This congregation is a theologically diverse religious community with membership open to all who are in accord with our values, mission, and vision. Our congregation is entirely self-governed by democratic process. One of the privileges of our free church tradition is to provide all of the financial support for our many ministries from among ourselves. Generosity, therefore, is one of the spiritual values we recognize as central to our personal and institutional well-being. This month's undesignated plate offering will go toward the UUCQC Giving Garden. As many of you are aware, our hard work results in produce at the end of the season that goes to the Cafe on Vine and also to the Nest. We invite you now to participate in the blessing of giving as the ushers come among you to accept the gifts of the congregation. Please be as generous as you are able. Thank you for all the gifts of time and treasure that you give to this congregation. With sincere gratitude, we thank you. The reading for today, Be Not Afraid by Karen G. Johnston. A few years before this past pandemic, I flew to Chicago to visit my mother, who lives in a memory care facility near my brother. Since she takes great pleasure in ice cream, I planned a field trip to a local ice cream shop, an activity I was sure would be a happy one. Instead, she nearly got injured because of something I did. While my mother was confused and in limbo, I was afraid and ashamed, tears streaming down my face, unsure how to end her distress. The staff of this facility offered skilled assistance to my mother, getting her safely back into her wheelchair. They offered me only deft compassion, not the terse judgment that I feared. Their responses reminded me that through our shared interdependence, we are sheltered and saved. Travelers on an airport escalator taken from the top looking down, have that in your mind, please. In one of her poems, Naomi Shibad Nye describes strangers meeting at an airport gate. One very much in distress, the other helping. They discover that they are, and always have been, connected. In the poem, it turns out that all is not lost. In the poem, it turns out that the world is a shared world. Having just learned this with my mother, I learned it again on my way home. As I headed to the baggage claim at the Chicago O'Hare Airport, I heard a whisper from a stock-still figure on the top of the escalator. Tengo miedo, I am afraid. She was frozen with fear. Speaking to herself, speaking to the universe, I decided she was speaking to me. Instead of breezing past, I offered what I hoped was a kind smile and in a soothing voice I said, "Esté bien." She looked at me. I asked, "Juntos?" She nodded. I put out my hand. She placed hers in mine. Then we counted, uns, dos, tres. Together we stepped into the moving machine, my new friend clutching my hand all the way down. Moments later, I prepped her for stepping off, which we did juntos. She leaned into me, my heart tenderly beating for her. It's so easy to get lost in our fears, to feel all alone. It's true that there are some fears we, you, me, everyone must face solely on our own. Yet compassion is a choice to not allow all to be lost. Compassion is an affirmation that we live in a shared world and that we are better for it.
When I was a little girl, and if I'm honest, also when I was not so little, I was deeply afraid of the dark. I was certain there were monsters, devils, or demons hiding in the closet, under my bed, just outside the window, in that shadowy corner, pretty much everywhere. I would wrap my blankets tight around me and try to fall asleep in fear that I would be attacked or eaten while I slept. My mom was a nurse, and she usually worked the third shift overnight, so she wasn't home to protect me all the time. And my dad, well, he was not the kind of person you wake up in the middle of the night without a really good excuse. And I had learned that from prior experiences that terrifying monsters under the bed were not a really good excuse to wake up Dad. So lots of nights, I would just pray and pray and pray until I fell asleep. I would pray that God would protect me from whatever was hiding in the dark. But if my fear got particularly bad, I would sometimes sneak downstairs to the basement and turn on the TV. I remember watching reruns of the Three Stooges in the middle of the night. I would laugh at them until I felt better and was tired enough that I could fall asleep. Other nights, I would sneak into my little sister's room and crawl into bed with her. She was little, but I figured if the monsters came, at least they would eat her first. I'd have a fighting chance that way. And sleeping next to another person is just comforting, especially when you know that that someone loves you. There's a power in love to fight fear. I realized that looking back on that little girl version of myself, that the strategies I used to deal with fear are still useful to me as an adult. When I snuck into the basement to watch the Three Stooges, I would laugh and laugh at the ridiculous slapstick. And laughter has a magical power to make fear go away. I think that's part of the reason that late night political comedy talk shows are so popular. It's not uncommon for people to watch the news and become overwhelmed with fear. And when done well, these comedy shows allow us to process that fear in a safe way. Stephen Colbert, one of the late night TV hosts, said in an interview, "Hopefully, the best thing I can do is make them feel better, make them not be afraid. That's what my goal is, to make the audience not be afraid, because then they will know what they actually think. Because when you're afraid, you can't think. And fear, as Frank Herbert says in Dune, fear is the mind killer. But if you're laughing, you can't be afraid. And so if you laugh, I know you can think." Laughter allows us to see very scary situations from a different perspective. Fear closes down parts of our brains. When we're afraid, our minds respond with the primal instincts of fight, flight, or freeze. The intellectual and creative parts of our brains disengage when our body prepares to fight. When we laugh, we reopen those neural pathways. We make it possible for creativity and intelligent thought to enter back into the equation. And we can approach our fear in rational, creative, intentional ways, not just with a gut reaction. So one coping mechanism when we are afraid is to find the humor, however dark, in that situation. Another way to deal with fear is to hold on to faith. For some people in this room, that is faith in a God, a deity or deities. For others, it is a faith in science and logic. And for still others, it is a faith in the power of nature, or faith in community, or even simply a strong faith in our best selves. I remember as a child, one of my favorite hymns at church was called "Be Not Afraid." The chorus went like this: "Be not afraid, I go before you always, come follow me, and I will give you rest." I think that song was so comforting to me because, as I said, I was a very scared child. I put up a good front, but I was scared of a lot of things. Not only was I terrified of the dark, I was always afraid I wasn't good enough, that people wouldn't like me, that bad things would happen to me. But I think all my fears really originated from one primary fear: the fear of being alone. And this hymn always comforted me because it made me feel that no matter what, where I was going, I would not be alone. That God would be with me. In fact, I think that pretty much summed up my entire theology of my childhood. God would protect me from the scariness of the world. And that's it. Even though my religious understanding has changed radically since then, this hymn still takes me back to that place of comfort, a place of feeling safe. And when I think back on it, I can vividly remember my mother singing this hymn in her never quite exactly on key, but still beautiful voice. My mom was once told that she shouldn't sing because she wasn't good at it, and it made her self-conscious about singing for the rest of her life. But I am so glad that she still sang songs to me, and with me, and around me, because she really likes to sing. And she loved and loves singing praises to her God. And it is because she was courageous enough to do a thing that made her happy regardless of what others may or may not think about it, without having to be perfect at it, that I have this amazing memory of my mother. So when I think of this song now, I don't think as much of Jesus or the God of my childhood. I think of my mother. And I would be willing to bet that her mother also sang this song. And when I think of my mother and my grandmother singing, the lyrics have a different meaning to me. Be not afraid. I go before you always. Come, follow me, and I will give you rest. I think of all the times my mother was there for me, the times I was heartbroken, the times I was exhausted, the times I was overwhelmed, and the times I felt alone. I think of all those times that she comforted me and loved me and put up with all my nonsense. I think of all the times she provided me a place to rest my physical body, as well as a place to rest my heart and mind. And I think of all the times I am called to follow her example and show the same love and compassion to my own children and to everyone else in my life. The times I am called to be a place of rest and calm in the midst of the storms. The times that I can provide a safe place where they do not have to be afraid of the unknown, at least for a little while. And these thoughts of my mother and my grandmother and all the lessons I've learned from all of the people who have gone before me help me to hold on to faith. I remember that others have made it through scary times and frightening situations. I remember that I am not the first to journey through the unknown. Generations of people have stepped out into fear with nothing more than their faith to sustain them. And I can do it too. And so can you. We are not alone, and we need not be afraid. We need only follow the path of love forged by our ancestors. And for the times when that fear is so overwhelming that we can't find a way to laugh, and our faith is faltering, we know that we always have each other. When I was a child, I had a pretty narrow definition of what church was. To me, it was a place to go and learn about this mysterious God that I couldn't see, and I could never quite get the understanding of. But I was told that he loved me and would protect me. Church was a place for my little girl self to find protection from the fear that threatened to constantly overwhelm me. And I needed that. To be honest, I still do. We live in a scary world. There is so much negativity, so many things that are out of our control, constant media coverage of the worst the world has to offer. We are continuously surrounded by messages designed to manipulate us by playing on our fears. And it is easy, so easy, to become overwhelmed and controlled by that fear. And I think, at least in part, that is why we come to church. Because we need a place to feel safe. A place where we can hear messages of hope to counteract all those messages of fear. But most of all, we come together as a religious community to form connections with other people. Human beings are social creatures, even the introverts. We need community in some form in order to thrive. And church is a place where we build a community. We create relationships with people who can make us laugh and help us find the faith we need to keep going. There are people here who hold us up when we are struggling. We connect with partners to work with us to fight for justice in the world. In church, we find a community of people who sing with us and to us and around us. And that when we are afraid, we can remember those songs of love and hope and courage and know that we are not alone and we need not be afraid. Church also provides us with a rich tradition upon which we can call for examples of how to remain strong in our values. We can recall the history of our church, how our ancestors and elders have courageously gone before us to forge a path towards justice and equity, how we can find strength in their examples and leadership as we continue their work. Just one example. Dorothea Dix was one of our courageous Unitarian ancestors. She was born into a family with alcoholic and abusive parents, but overcame her difficult upbringing and became a very powerful social reformer. She's remembered for her relentless advocacy for the humane treatment of the mentally ill and her dedicated service during the Civil War. Dorothea investigated the brutal conditions of mental health facilities across the United States and abroad. She lobbied successfully for the creation of more than 30 mental asylums. Her moral courage also extended to her leadership as superintendent of Army nurses during the Civil War, where she defied societal norms to organize and train thousands of women to care for wounded soldiers on both sides. Despite opposition and setbacks, including a presidential veto of her land reform bill, Dorothea persisted in her mission, leaving a lasting legacy of institutional reform and humanitarian service. Her steadfast commitment to human dignity and social justice make her a powerful example of one of our courageous Unitarian ancestors. When church does what it's supposed to do, it is a place of unconditional love, welcome, and acceptance for those who seek to live in sacred covenant with one another. We can be the pillars of loving strength for each other when the darkness is a little too scary to handle on our own. We can be a place of comfort and rest for one another when the fight is just a little too hard to handle alone. We can be sources of laughter and faith and joy and strength and songs for one another when the fear is just a little too overwhelming. We can inspire each other with the stories of the courage and strength of our ancestors. We can, and I pray that we will. Be not afraid. I go before you always. Come, follow me, and I will give you rest. So may it be.
If you will stand as you're able for our closing song, number 95, in the gray hymnal, There's More Love Somewhere.
Please remain lifted up as we extinguish the chalice and join in the unison reading. It's all right, I get confused too. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
This is the announcement part of our service. If you have an announcement for a Sunday service, please send it to the office at office@uucqc.org by 12 noon on Thursday before the service. We have a few announcement items. One of the announcements, this first one, is close to me because I served as your delegate this past summer at UUGA, that is the Unitarian Universalist Association General Assembly. We do not have a practice of reviewing acts of immediate witness and sharing our point of view on them in a business meeting. So as resolutions come to the floor, I am motivated in terms of how I vote on what I hear from you in terms of your diversity of opinions, and also on the basis of my conscience as it reflects this community. At General Assembly this past June, the Unitarian Universalist Association passed an action for immediate witness in support of Palestine and a call to educate ourselves about the Israeli-Palestine conflict. We've already done that in part by a Saturday night gathering that Reverend Sabrina organized. With that in mind, the Board of Trustees and the Social Justice Committee ask you to save the date for a film event which will happen here on the afternoon of March 8th. My understanding is that gathering begins at 1 o'clock. Is that correct? 1:30. The film is The Occupation of the American Mind, narrated by Roger Waters of Pink Floyd fame. Journalist David Zarin of The Nation magazine, one of my favorite reads, calls it a vital and unmissable film. We encourage you not to miss it. Also a note of related to child care. If you will need child care that afternoon, please advise the office so that, we're going to add to that. Stand up, please, so that, go ahead. Okay, so see Linda Pratt, see her in person or contact her by email or phone to let her know that you need child care. Otherwise, it's not necessary to register for this film. Second announcement, the Board of Trustees announces that a long-term rental agreement has been negotiated with a local yoga instructor who will be leasing the community room space, including the office, the halls, and the bathrooms. We will be using the space until February 17th, so this applies to us immediately, at which time the lease takes effect. The instructor is Becky Nakashima Brooke, and her company is called Illuminate Hearing Studio, LLC. I appreciate the audience helping me along with these announcements, too. Thank you very much, friends. We're seeking a volunteer to step into the role of rental coordinator for UUCQC. Your job would be to schedule a time to take people on short tours of the property, upon request, coordinate the calendar with the office administrator, and finalize the contracts. This could include people scheduling weddings, parties, classes, concerts, and more. It would include working with members and friends of the congregation, as well as private parties from outside our congregation. Contact Lori McCullum with questions if you're interested. And of course, this is a financial effort on the part of our congregation, which increases our overall income. Finally, let me draw your attention to the additional announcements that are printed on the back of your order of service. Yes, yes.
I think a couple things got missed for the list of announcements.
Okay.
Can I add them?
We've been having a discussion throughout the week that was going on as late as last night. So here's some additions.
Here's some additions. Pastoral Care invites you to a community gathering on Monday, March 3rd from 6 to 7:15 in the sanctuary. During what can be difficult days, we invite you to join members and friends as we gather and rest in beloved community. All are welcome. Childcare will be provided upon request, and you need to get that request in today. There will be a film screening at Hope United Church of Christ on March 14th, Acts of Reparation. They invite our congregation to join them to view and discuss this important documentary that follows two friends, one who is black and one who is white, who travel to the South to their ancestral lands to explore what reparations mean to them. From kitchen tables to porches, lost cemeteries to discovered diaries, their journeys lead to unexpected opportunities that transform their friendship, families, and communities. This will include a potluck dinner at 5 p.m. and the film will begin at 6 with discussion to follow. Hope UCC is located in Moline, near the Moline Public Library.
And finally, we have an announcement about the Value Series that goes on at 9 o'clock on Sunday mornings.
And then Dave Coe had one that he also mentioned. He's inviting us to check out periodically his new blog at memoryloads.com. And then be sure to click the box that says get in touch so he knows how much traffic he receives. So thank you for listening to our lengthy announcement.
And please join us at 9 o'clock next Sunday morning as we continue our values discussion.
I'll leave you with some words that ground me when I'm afraid. These words come from Julian of Norwich, written around 1373, with an additional line added by songwriter Penny Stone. All shall be well, and all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well. For there is a force of love moving through the universe that holds us fast and will never let us go. Go in peace. You may be seated for the postlude.